So in today's episode, we're talking with Hampton, who's a process engineer, along with his wife, who's a county lawyer. We're going to talk about their journey and what made them decide to start an Airbnb business over other businesses, and how they were able to secure $20,000 worth of bookings in a short amount of time. We're going to learn about his strategic approach on how he selects and sets up his properties, and how he's able to balance everything with a demanding day job. This is a great episode. We talk about a lot of tactical stuff. You don't want to miss this one. Alrighty. Hey, Hampton. Excited to be chatting with you today. You got an awesome property, on the water. And so, before we get going, let's kind of talk about, how you got started, in real estate, your entrepreneur journey, and then also what you do for a living. And then, that'll kind of give the viewers a good background, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So a little bit about my background. My daily job is I'm a process engineer. I work for a company that we're consulting engineers. I work there. My wife's a lawyer. She works here for the local county. And we've been talking about trying to get into investment properties. And we've been kicking it around for several years. I actually started doing a little bit more digging as we started kind of getting in through our careers and getting to a point where I kind of felt like I wanted to do something a little bit different and kind of just wanted to start branching out. I started doing a lot of research on rental properties. I've seen everything. And then I actually saw one of your legacy investing shows, and I started one of your little Facebook and stuff and started following and got really, really interested, stepped into one of your little seminars you did for how to do short-term rentals and everything, got hooked on that and got a lot of knowledge, and finally that finally gave me to the point where we decided to take a leap and start doing the short-term rental invest. Once we did that, we started looking for properties, looked for months trying to find the right property and stuff. And specifically with the one we have in Lake Gaston, kind of as I said, is my parents' property, and we kind of were looking at places to start up there. That's kind of where we wanted to start. We had been there before. That was something that was comfortable for us to start with. And so I was talking about it with my parents, and I was like, hey, we're looking at places to start up there. And they were like, well, what are you going to be doing? I was like, well, we've added the short-term rentals. And I kind of explained it to them, and I kind of showed them. I actually took some of the tools that you kind of provided with us that were I liked a lot so far as breaking down what to expect and stuff. And I took that and showed them. I said, look, it's a great property. We love being up there. I said, but here's what you could make if we rented it on some of the weekends we're not there. And I kind of presented it to them. They looked through it and they were like, wow. I mean, so they kind of didn't realize what they could be making on it. And we kind of started putting things together as we started going through some of the courses and started really kind of broadening the knowledge on this, started putting stuff together. And they finally agreed for us to rent the property and put it on Airbnb and start moving it through, kind of started from there, and it started growing. I will say the courses that I have really, really gave me a good fundamentals on what to expect, how to do it. It has been a very good guide for me to help us get started, kind of, just expanding into the property itself.
Awesome, man. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but let's kind of take things one thing at a time here. So for, obviously, your property is awesome. We're kind of going to get into all that as well. So let's first talk about something interesting that you said was, you were thinking about doing this for years with your wife, right? So what was kind of that final, push, over the fence to be like, okay, this is it. I'm going to start this now versus, maybe guys, I don't know if this is the right time, because, a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis, or, they see all these different business models out there and they're like, I don't know which one. They just don't end up doing anything. So what was kind of that final nudge to finally get started with something?
So the final thing pushed for me was, so as a consulting engineer, we the company, they have their highs and their lows, and so we were kind of going through kind of a low period where for work, and I was kind of still getting my hours in and stuff, but it was something that I was like, okay, well, there's going to be times where I'm going to have lows in work, and there may be times where the company just doesn't have work for an extended period of time, and I may not have work. If I don't have work, I don't get paid. So I was kind of I was talking with my wife, and I was really thinking that it was look, we really need something extra, to kind of help us kind of, make it through any time. That way can be financially stable and say, okay, it doesn't matter if I don't have work for a month or two. We still got rentals. We still got the rentals we can rely on to help with that. And then she's got her job, and she doesn't have to worry about if she needs to do anything specific with that or work any extra with that. And we could kind of be financially independent. And we looked at a lot of things. There was a lot of things going on. Everybody saying you could do anything from, ATM machines to vending machines to all this other different stuff. And I was just like, man, it doesn't, a lot of that stuff just didn't seem to fit with me. It didn't really seem to meet what we were doing. And then we followed some of your legacy investing shows and some little things like that to start saying, okay, well, you can automate this and do that. And I was like, man, that seems to be more of a fit for us. And we did. And it just ended up we were like, okay, we did it. And I was like, now's now's the time. We've got to do it during that low period. We're in a low period again. I've got the time. I need to start taking the time to set up and do it. And we just sat down and came to an agreement. Said, this is it. Let's take a leap of faith and just go with it. And it's worked out very well. Very excited about doing it. Been extremely nervous about it, but sometimes you just got to take a leap of faith and take the risk. And it's definitely panned out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, kind of worry about the what ifs, right? Especially if you haven't like done any sort of anything entrepreneurial, right? And it's totally normal. Everyone goes through it, right? But something that I really like about what you guys did was you guys came together like, okay, I'm sure you guys are making a good living right now, being a lawyer, being an engineer consultant. But like a lot of people in the program, in the community, they're really high level people. We got doctors, we got engineers, a lot of really successful people. But even they know like, hey, like overnight, if I get a call, I might not have that income tomorrow. And so really starting to hedge your bets and figuring out, okay, we need additional sources of income so that way we're not completely stressed if one day something bad were to happen. So I think there's a lot of people in the community like that. Love that you were able to kind of take it finally and just be like, okay, let's just go with this. Because there's a bunch of business models that can work. It's just all about a matter of fit. Like you said, I think that's really, really important that you dig into before you get started with anything. So your parents' property is awesome. Let's talk about kind of the numbers on that property, right? So I know you said that you got $20,000 in bookings within like the first couple of weeks of it going live. So where is it at today? And what are we looking at?
So today we're looking at, I think we're up to around $30,000 in bookings so far for the year. Now that we started the property back, we came online with it just on Airbnb. I think it was around mid-June, end of June. So we picked up. So basically, we've done about probably a little over $30,000 in bookings from probably toward the end of June through July, August, September. So being here in October, we're getting into kind of the winter seasons. We're trying to really manage the property and turn it into trying to cover us for like the off season, so to speak. So we do have that off season up there, that particular property. It does get slow in the winter months. So for this particular property, trying to fill out the winter months, so to speak. So our off season, we're going through the off season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's seasonality involved in pretty much any market, right? So understanding like when those are, planning for them, like you said, the way that we look at properties is kind of the aggregate of the entire year. Right, because when you do that and have all that data, you can figure out, okay, these are the months where it's going to be slower, where we can keep a little more reserves in. Here are the busier months where we're gonna go all in. Make sure that we're fully optimized for that, and then you can make it over and then when you do the average for the entire year, then you can see what your cash flow is going to be. So love that you're gonna kind of see the whole all the seasonalities of it, but you ran the numbers and obviously the numbers make sense. So excited for that. So let's talk about your path moving forward now. So like, what's your strategy behind the next property? Are you looking in the same area? Let's talk a little bit more about your future goals here.
Okay, so for our future goals we started with this property up and running. We didn't really have to, since it was already set up and we already kind of had everything set up, so we didn't have to put a lot of money into it to like there's a few little things we had to do to get it, fire extinguishers, a few little things to get it done. So now that it's done and it's kind of moving and kind of setting itself up, we started to move. We found another place where we wanted to do we have another property that we're working on, and we actually just went live with part of it. So we have another property that we picked up in West Virginia, big ATV country up there. So we picked up a property over there. It's kind of coming in two phases this time. So we've picked up something and we've kind of gone into a remodeling piece of it. So we picked a place that had like an apartment and a garage, and we've remodeled it, and that's part of the property. So that property is setting up and it's going and it's doing actually pretty well right now. And now we have, as the second part of the second phase of that property, we have a house that's right next door that is it's a big house, and we're working our way through it, remodeling it and getting it set up. So hopefully looking at right now spring of 2024 to have that entire property as a whole completed and done. So really excited about that. We call it, there's a little house and then we call it the big house. Little house is on right now, and it seems to be, since we went live just at the beginning of October, and we've seen probably the first month is probably around $2,500 worth of bookings so far in that, just going from October. And then we are picking up, and then we're starting to gain speed and coming up in November too. People booking out into November as well. So very excited about that. So that's another big thing. It's kind of a different shift from being on the lakefront. Now we're back up into the kind of in the mountain area, catering to a little bit different crowd of people.
Yeah, let's kind of unpack this deal here. So it sounds like you guys purchased this property, right?
We did. So we came in, we found somebody that was looking to move. They had an existing, call it an Airbnb place up there. They were trying to sell. So we bought half of it. We bought, like, there's an upper and a lower half. We bought the lower half of it. And so when we bought it, we bought the house next to it, and then we bought two other lots. There's pretty much a couple lots that are right next to each other. So we kind of bought all that together. And so we did that because after doing the research from using AirDNA and using some information from that, we took that and looked and started looking at some of the properties that were up there, and we really wanted to get into that market. So we really took that down and said, okay, buy this place, we need places for people to park, because up there, everybody pulls ATVs, so they need trailers and they need places to park. So we really needed to focus on that. And that's why we bought the lower half, because it had the most space. And it seemed for where we wanted to be, to make sure we had a lot of stuff covered for the property, we could. So using that information, we knew what we could do. We kind of used that to back into what we wanted to put into the little house to start with, to get it up and running. And it seems since we finally got it, took us a lot of trips up there to get it, start remodeling everything and put it in place. But it's really come together with the research we've done, with the design we went with. And yeah, that's come along really, really well. And then the big house, it was something that kind of we got, and we knew we were going to do it as a later project. And once we got done with the little house, we were going to move right onto the big house, and we've kind of done that. So it's definitely coming together. It's just we're making progress on it. So I'm very excited for of 2024 when we get this on Airbnb and getting it rolling. The goal for this particular property is to be one of the bigger properties in the area up there. And by the time we're done with the entire property, and call it like the lodge is what we call it, but it will be probably one of the bigger properties up there by the time we're said and done. It will have, I think we're looking at 7 bedrooms and 5 baths when we're all said and done with. So it's going to be a pretty big property.
No, yeah, love that strategy, because there's things that people think about, and one thing that I think about especially when go to purchase a property is these value add things, right? So you have the small apartment with the garage, and you can get all these bundled up in one deal, but you can basically they're 2 different assets, right? And so you go live with the smaller one, it takes a little bit, it's quicker because there's less furniture, there's less rehab you have to worry about. You start bringing in that income, and then perfect strategy, and then you have that bigger home, which is going to be kind of like your cash cow, coming up in here in a few months. And then once that's live, now you basically have 2 assets on one property. So I love that you saw that vision from that, because not a lot of people kind of see those visions. There's like, oh, like, what are we gonna do with this stinky apartment, right? But you're generating income from it. So love that strategy. So what are we looking at as far as once everything's done? I know the first little apartment's up and running, the bigger house is upcoming. Like, what's the cash flow numbers looking like for both properties here?
So I just had those pulled up, the numbers. I may have to go get them and pull them up. But I do know with what we have, so our cash on cash return for the little property, now that we're done with it, and I'm still going through figuring out, we had some estimates on the utility side, so we're still trying to get the utility side figured out on what that's actually going to look like more long term. But right now, our cash on cash return for the little apartment is looking to be somewhere in the 25 to 30% range as far as for that. So real excited just for the little house. And then the big house in itself I think it's going to do a lot better. I haven't really sat down and figured up the numbers, because what we're trying to do here is have more of a plan forward for the big house, to make sure when we've already worked on the downstairs, it's getting put together, and now we're getting on the upstairs part of the house and working on it. So I really don't have quite numbers on there, but the initial estimate I did once we all said and done from like going using AirDNA was something around $75,000 a year just for the big house, and then the little house would pick up whatever it had the second part. So hopefully we're looking for, once I put all the numbers together, and I can send you these when I get them done, but probably looking north of $100,000 a year in that particular property between both of them.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, I mean, for people that don't know what cash on cash return means, so basically it's the amount of cash that you get back for the amount of cash that you put in. And so for the long-term rentals, just so people can put into perspective, the ones that you get like a couple $100 in cash flow, like, I mean, now I would be lucky to get a deal that's like 8% cash on cash return, right? And so, you're basically almost tripling that from like long-term rentals. That's why such a huge proponent. And then of course, as you get into arbitrage, those numbers get even crazier. But of course, it sounds like you guys have some income. You want to take advantage of some of the tax, the depreciation, all this stuff that, all the benefits that come along with owning real estate. So it sounds like you guys got yourself an awesome deal here. So, awesome stuff, man. So let's also talk about, as you start to scale, right? Because, a lot of people really don't believe me when they're like, there's no way you're working a couple hours per week on your portfolio. Like, it's a hospitality business. You're probably in the day-to-day working 40-hour plus weeks for just a couple properties. But like, now that these properties are up and running, like, how much time does it take you per week to manage everything?
I was really worried about that when I first started. I said, okay, I got with my job, my wife's job, we have two wonderful kids that we have to, practice, shuffle to practice and do all that. So I was like, I have a hectic schedule. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to get this? And so I was really worried the initial setup, getting everything set up. So putting everything into Airbnb, getting everything set up and linked up. That did take a little bit of my time, probably like, I would say probably spend about on average 2 hours a day for the initial week where I can to get everything set up and get everything how I liked it. Now, again, that being my first property, it took me a little bit longer to get it set up, as I was, trying to be very slow, be very methodical about setting everything up to make sure everything worked like I wanted it to. So, but now that the place is up and running, I log on, probably get on Guesty every day, kind of go through, check a few things, get on Price Lab, checking my pricing tools and all that stuff. Probably not a whole lot of, maybe an hour a day at most to manage that between the two properties right now. I'm going through and making sure photos are added up, maybe move those around, at most an hour a day. It's not more than that.
Yeah. I mean, once you have like the solid boots on the ground team, set up, like all you have to do really, and you're probably spending more time than you actually need to, just because you want to, kind of hone in things. But once, kind of figure out the groove of things with the pricing, the guest management, and then all the different operational sides, and automate all that back end stuff, like it becomes, it's honestly like way less than you would expect. And I'm sure that you've probably found the same.
Yeah, it's definitely been between the two properties. We've had some issues that come up, but having a good team or having a good list of people to call in that general area that can help out and go address these issues. And all I have to do is send a message to somebody, be like, hey, do you mind stepping over here? I need you to check this out. Or messaging like the cleaning crew, having those messages set up and getting my cleaning crew engaged to where they get it every time we get a booking. They go ahead, they get a message to say, hey, we got a new booking, we've got a cleaning on these dates. We're gonna have to have a cleaning on these dates, and go ahead and get that up front to them. And then another reminder to them a little bit closer to the date saying, hey, remember we have this cleaning coming up, make sure nothing has changed, let me know, we can adjust. And being very upfront with them and getting them engaged like that has been very very helpful. And that way I'm not chasing somebody down like, okay, I've got a booking, I need to go call this person and then call that person. And yeah, it's a lot of that automated messaging has helped me out so much, and especially with our hectic lifestyle, it's been a lifesaver, really.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, man. So appreciate the time, but before we wrap this up, I always like to ask people that come on this question. So what would you say to someone that's considering kind of playing with the idea of starting an Airbnb business or just any sort of business in general? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
I would say definitely it's going to be scary. It's going to be very intimidating because there's going to be a lot of things that you think you don't know. But if you take the time, you be patient, do your research, look at different things, just do your research, look up things, and to be patient before you buy, before you get into your first property, and take that and be very methodical. You will have the confidence to do what you need to do. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you. Don't just say, oh, look, I found a property that looks great and it's cheap and I can go ahead and get right into it. Take the time, because I have made it by taking the time, analyzing it, using the steps that you've given us, and several other things that I've kind of brought in. I've avoided going out and just buying a property and then it's more like hope for the best. Now, you make sure that's probably the biggest advice I can give you. Make sure you take the time, be methodical in your evaluation, and then just commit to it.
Love that, man. Awesome stuff. Thanks for sharing all the, the great news. Excited to see this huge property growing up live here in a few months as well. Congrats on all the success. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Of course. See you, man.